NFC playoff game going on right now. The Seahawks lead the Eagles in Philly 10-3 at the half. But a more pressing concern for Philadelphia is the condition of Carson Wentz. He left this game in the first quarter, went back to the locker room to be evaluated for a potential head injury. Sal Paolantonio was at that game. He joins us now here on SportsCenter. Sal, what more can you tell us right now as this game's at the half?
Well, Michael, I went down to the Eagles locker room when Carson Wentz was taken down there. He did not go into the X-ray room. He went straight into the training room section of the Eagles locker room. Clearly, he was being evaluated for a head injury. This came midway through the first quarter. Carson Wentz had been sacked at the Eagles' 24-yard line for -1 yards. And as he was going to the ground, Jadeveon Clowney hit him with his head and shoulder and drove Wentz's head into the ground. There was no penalty called. Wentz got up and played for the rest of the drive and then was taken to the locker room. When he was in the locker room, his wife, Madison, was escorted by Eagle security to the locker room area to be with her husband. After that, I was not able to see what went on.
Sal, a couple questions here, and I hope I'm not putting you too much on the spot here. When Carson Wentz was leaving the field, were you able to observe how he was walking off that field?
I was not, other than from the press box area, but, he didn't look too happy about it because he had gone into the blue tent. He was obviously, because he was just downgraded to out. Just downgraded to out, Michael. We just got the word that Carson Wentz has been downgraded to out. He's out of the game.
Of course, Josh McCown in the game right now in a relief situation for the Eagles. Again, Sal Paolantonio, again, breaking the news here that Carson Wentz will not return to the second half of this game. Eagles down 10-3 right now, the start of the third quarter. And also, Sal, you've been covering the NFL for a long time. When family members are brought down to the locker room, especially during the games, that's typically not a good sign. Not to speculate here, but how often have you seen that?
Not very often. He's a newlywed, and I'm sure that she wanted to be with her husband. I mean, it's not the sign of anything terrible beyond the fact that he's got a head injury and he's out of the game, knocked out of his first playoff game in the first quarter, which is not good. But, he was walking under his own power, and the security guards outside the locker room told me that he was not happy when he was brought into the locker room. So clearly, he was cognizant of the situation that he was in.
Again, Carson Wentz injured in the first quarter of this game, just been ruled out for the remainder of this game against the Seahawks. They trail it right now 10-3, start of the third quarter. Sal Paolantonio is there. He will have more on Carson Wentz coming up once this game is concluded right here on SportsCenter. Sal, appreciate the time.
So NFL Rewind, that begins when they're done in Philly. And speaking of Rewind, Mike, at the beginning of the week, all the talk around Mike Zimmer was the inquiry from the Dallas Cowboys. Zim's got something else to worry about right now.
Yeah, another game to be played because they went on the road and did something they hadn't done in nearly 16 years in Minnesota. More on that in a moment. The Vikings and the Saints, Kirk Cousins, Drew Brees, could they live up to the excitement that the AFC gave us on Saturday's slate of wildcard games? Dalvin Cook been nursing an injury. He is back and in full effect. But here, it looked like he gave up the game. Ball gets loose, recovered by the Saints, and Ryan, they take it to the house.
Well, listen, this was a play that they needed. Offense was stifled. They get the touchdown, and when they're reviewing this, every fan in New Orleans is already upset.
But his knee was clearly down before the ball pops out. Cook did have 2 rushing touchdowns in this game, but avoiding the turnover was crucial there. Ensuing Saints drive, Will Lutz is warming up. You got Drew Brees looking for Jared Cook. And how about this one? Not just the catch, Coach, but all the way down inside the 30.
Oh, yeah, this was a big mismatch for him. He was big all day, Cook, and that was a great second effort.
So it eventually to a 49-yard field goal attempt that would tie it up and send it to overtime good. So it's 20 all going to the extra frame. So we go to the coin toss, then the Vikings win it, and you take the ball. That's automatic. So the question would be, could Cousins lead a touchdown drive and prevent the Saints from even touching the ball? Here he is, looking downfield to Allen Thielen, and Cousins like, yo, if you bet against me, I suggest you get a refund. How about that throw and the catch? 43-yard gain. Thielen with 7 grabs, 129. Saints are at the 2. 3rd and goal now. From the 4, after 2 rushing plays got busted up, Cousins to Kyle Rudolph in the corner, ball game. Now the Saints players and their fans and everyone in the state of Louisiana saying that should be off offensive pass interference. They wanted a review. Let's take a couple looks at it. Coach, what do you see?
Well, look, I came in this league when it was no blood, no foul. So I think they're going to hand fight. You're going to get some of that. And look, the other thing is I was raised not to question officials.
Is that right?
Yeah, so they have a lot of opportunities.
Well, I wasn't raised like that. I was raised differently. I was raised to question because they were taking my money, but I also believe that's a flag you can throw.
Much more on that to come in a moment, but again, the Vikings get the win 26-20, their first road playoff victory since 2004. I mentioned those 2 touchdowns by Dalvin Cook. That's the first running back for Minnesota to do that in a playoff game since Adrian Peterson. You see Drew Brees, 26 for 33, 208, touchdown, interception. He also had a fumble. He's got 10 picks now in his last 8 playoff games. But again, everything is going to be talked about on the final play of the game. Pass interference or no pass interference? Let's get some reaction, starting with the victorious starting quarterback.
Again, I don't even know how much to tell you football-wise, what I can and can't, but yeah, it was a great play by Rudy, one-on-one, and he went up and grabbed it and kept his feet in, which is a big challenge. He made a great play.
Did you worry at all that there might be a flag on the final play?
Not at all. I mean, that's, like I said, he just gave it up, threw a ball up in the air, gave me a chance to go get it, and my basketball instincts took over.
I looked up there and saw both feet in with a third foot down and him ball in his hand, so I was gone. I saw the referees leaving. I'm leaving.
I didn't see any officials. I saw Mike. We chatted for a little bit and saw some of the other players we coached in the Pro Bowl and congratulated them, and they did a good job. They played well.
It doesn't matter, we're clearly not going to get a second ruling. The refs ran off as soon as they alerted that it was a touchdown and didn't even go for review, and that's something that I'm sure the league will come out with the new rule next year.
All right, for a little more perspective on this, let's bring in John Perry, our resident NFL officiating analyst. Clearly a lot of emotions involved in the call from a New Orleans Saints standpoint, John, but from an officiating standpoint, what did you see?
Well, this won't be the first time that I disagree with Coach Fox, as he well knows, but to me it's a little bit more than just hand fighting. That right arm does get extended. It does create separation. There is actually a little bit of a push, which takes the defender back towards the end zone, which allows just enough advantage for the receiver to get up and make the catch. To me, it is and was OPI.
Well, John, let me ask you this. When it comes to 2 guys fighting for position, because clearly there was hand-to-hand contact from both players there, when does it become a foul?
If you take a look at that defender's body language right at the end of the separation, right at the end of the extension, there is upper body that heads back into the end zone. To me, that is what created enough of the separation to potentially call offensive pass interference. Keep in mind, every play inside 2 minutes is reviewed. This was just not stopped. So my question might be, or maybe New York's statement might be, potentially had a flag been thrown, we stay with the call. The question becomes, what is the level to create an overturn?
All right, well, Al Riveron did speak to a pool reporter there in New Orleans and gave the NFL's official response to the question of whether that was pass interference or not. And according to Al, you can read it right there on your screen yourself. We looked at it from all angles that Fox afforded us, and Fox gave us some great views. There was contact by both players, but none of that contact rises to the level of a foul that is consistent with what we've done all year long. We left the ruling on the field. We let it stand. Now, of course, they instituted a new rule last year, John, as you well know, because of a play involving pass interference that was not called in the NFC Championship game last year involving the Saints. But, of course, that rule was brought in to affect egregious misjudgments on a call. This was not an egregious misjudgment, would you say?
No, I wouldn't. But here's what I would say. We've had a bar, a level that no one has really known what that consistent bar has been for 17 weeks. If we go back, I think it might be going back to as far as weeks 3 or 4. The last OPI that was potentially created might have even been Minnesota on a potential pick play. It's been that long since we've created an offensive pass interference foul in the National Football League. To me, I think we could have potentially stopped the game and created a reversal, created offensive pass interference for this specific play.
I think emotions will be involved in how you see this play, but I think everyone can agree to one point that you did bring up there, John, is you want consistency, and I think everyone can say the NFL has lacked in that regard over a series of calls throughout this season. John Perry joining us here on SportsCenter. Appreciate it. Well, heartbreak, nothing new for the Saints. Third straight season that New Orleans has had their